Okay, let us start. Not much time, it's 1 hour. Good evening. So, this time we are reading the 4th chapter from Shantideva's Bodhisattva Way of Life, which is on vigilance. In Tibetan it is called Phagyo. But there are so many different translations, I'm completely confused which one I should use. There's the word vigilance, conscientiousness, alertness, carefulness, so many choices. But I would personally prefer carefulness or caution also. Anyway, the meaning of this is important to understand this title. The title basically means the importance of developing some kind of carefulness in one's daily life in terms of adopting the positive practices and refraining or removing the negative emotions. So that's the meaning of being cautious. Carefulness. Carefulness is a very good word because it's an ordinary word, number one. Number two, everybody knows, please take care means that you take care of yourself, not doing those things which is harmful and doing those things which is positive, which is good. So there's the chapter. So it's quite interesting. Now if I summarize the whole 10th chapter of the Bodhisattva Way of Life, it can be summarized into this verse, this popular verse which we normally recite when we do this procession in the evening when somebody has self-immolated. Then we recite this one verse, Chanchu Semcho Rinpoche Majeba na Jeba na Jeba Nyamba Meba na Kune Kundu Pebrasho. So this verse is actually talking about the whole subject matter of Bodhisattva Way of Life. The most important topic that is being discussed in this Bodhisattva Way of Life or Chunjuk is Bodhicitta, Chanchu Semcho Rinpoche. That's the most important thing. So Chanchu Semcho Rinpoche, this mind to enlightenment is Semcho. Chanchu Sem means mind to enlightenment. And that mind to enlightenment is supreme. And it's precious. Chanchu Semcho Rinpoche. It's supreme, it's precious because, as we will study in this chapter, we are basically talking about two things. One, that in order to ensure that you have long-lasting peace and happiness, you need to develop, number one, the best of the minds. There are many positive minds like loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and so many things are there. But of all these different kinds of good minds, you cannot think about a mind which is as supreme, as good as bodhicitta. Because bodhicitta means bodhicitta, bodhi, enlightenment, citta, mind, mind to enlightenment. So mind to enlightenment basically means so the mind to enlightenment means that, or bodhicitta means, how nice if I become Buddha. How nice if I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Now look at this word. How nice if I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. There cannot be a mind better than this one. How nice if I become Buddha, not for relaxation, not for going for a holiday, but to help all suffering sentient beings. So it's basically saying that may I get that power, that omniscience, that best of mind, so that I have all the needed facilities in helping sentient beings who are in need of many things. It's very difficult to even look after one person. It's not easy. Because these different people have so many different mental dispositions, their bent of mind. So varied, so different. It's really, really difficult. And I got some kind of glimpse of the importance of becoming enlightened when I was working in His Holiness the Dalai Lama's office. As a religious assistant, whenever there is a visitor asking some philosophical question, a religious question, then the secretary is there, there's a Geshe, you go. So I have to go down and pretend that I have all the solutions, and then listen to their questions, problems, whatever you see. So from there I came to know that how varied the thinking, the mental dispositions are. And believe me, there are people who come with certain problems, and if you had the patience to just listen to them, you don't even need to answer their questions. If you had the patience just to listen to them, they will melt and go. Thank you, Geshe, I don't want any answer. I did not get anybody to listen to my problems until now. So this is a kind of example, you see. So many different people. Then some are sad, some are very excited, some are jubilant, some are over emotional, some are very sensitive, some are withdrawn, so many different kinds. So therefore, this definition of the bodhicitta saying that may I become Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Because at our ordinary level, even with the best of my intention, motivation, I may be able to do a very limited help, because I am not in a position to understand the depth of your mind, the different dispositions, the different imprints and seeds of the mind. It's impossible. So it's only when you become completely omniscient, when your mind is totally free from any kind of obstruction, then you are able to read the mind of that person. Not only the present state of the mind, but also the previous dispositions, imprints. What was the life of this person in the past? What will be the life in the future? All these things you will be able to know. And what kind of direction and teaching is useful for that person, you will be able to know that. This is like the difference between an educated person and an uneducated person. If somebody is more educated, he will be in a better position to help others than the one who is not educated. It's like that. So therefore, the best way of helping other sentient beings is to oneself become completely enlightened, oneself out of the suffering, out of the problem, then you can help. If you yourself is stuck in one or the other kind of problem, despite your, as I said, despite your best of intention, when you try to help that person, you will be also drawn into that problem. You may come up with a very good motivation to help that person. You may not be personally suffering, but when you are with this person, you will be drawn into it. Then you will get stuck there. That other person is crying, you will also cry. This is what we normally do. And what that other person needed is not somebody sitting there and feeling sad and crying together, no. What that person needed at that hour is somebody who does not cry, who understands your situation, who is strong enough to pull you out of that quagmire of suffering and problems. So that's why it makes perfect sense to say that may I become Buddha to benefit all suffering sentient beings. So that's why education is important. Knowledge is important. So there's so much emphasis in Buddhism to study, especially the tradition that we have in Tibet. The Tibetan tradition is called Nalanda tradition, where there's so much focus on study. And as far as the process of studying is concerned, it's threefold: hearing, thinking, meditation. You hear somebody's teaching, somebody's talk. And as a result of that hearing, you develop a wisdom, and that is called wisdom derived through listening, through hearing, which is good. Which is good. Which is good, but that is not the end of the story. You need to proceed further. Having heard somebody, having listened to somebody, then you need to do the homework. Most of us don't do that. You listen to His Holiness teaching, and you say, very good, His Holiness teaching. and you never try to remember it, never try to apply it in our daily life, so it doesn't really benefit you much. So therefore, the next important thing is to think, to reflect on the correctness and the usefulness of the teaching. You need to personally do this exercise of thinking. And through repeated thinking, you will be able to develop some conviction. You will be able to develop insight, wisdom, which is called wisdom derived through thinking, which is very good progress. Now you reached to a very good level. But even that one is not enough. Now you, through repeated thinking, you are able to develop that conviction, you are able to develop that wisdom. Still, it is not sure whether you are completely habituated with that knowledge or not. So therefore, the next step is meditation, which basically means get your mind totally habituated with that knowledge, with that positive practice. And by doing that, then you will be able to develop wisdom, which is called wisdom derived through meditation. So what transforms, what changes, what transforms one's actual life is the last two: wisdom derived through thinking and wisdom derived through meditation, not just hearing. But unfortunately, most of us, we don't even hear the teaching. Forget about going to the next stage. Oh, somebody is teaching, oh, that may not be so entertaining, so I should not. Better go for a walk up, down, This is our tendency, see. Even in the case of those who come and listen to the teaching, they hear and they develop some kind of wisdom, that's the end of the story. They never do the homework of reflecting, thinking, and making one's mind habituated with those teachings. So therefore, it doesn't affect one's actual life. Those of you who attended my previous talks, I explained that point earlier also, with the example of a person who is thirsty looking for water. You remember, some of you who attended that? If somebody is thirsty and looking for water, to hear where water is available is important. But that will not quench your thirst. What you need to do is really go near the water, drink it. Then the problem will be solved. So therefore, it's this last two stages, thinking, personal reflection, because through thinking, if you are able to develop a conviction, that will hopefully move you. Okay, I thought about it, I understood the correctness of the teaching. It's not only the teacher is saying or the book is saying, but I personally investigated it, thought about it, I am convinced. So that will shake you. That will move you to do something. And then on top of that, if you make sure that your mind gets habituated. That's the thing, you see. And one very interesting quality and feature of the mind is if you get habituated with something, the mind will get habituated with that. Komsal jendu kunche junde thup. There's a line which says, Komsel jendu kunche junde thup. That means the fact that we establish the possibilities of becoming Buddha and omniscient is that the mind can get habituated with a positive object, positive practice, and the more the mind gets habituated with this positive practice, the clearer that subject matter will come to the mind. And it is in this way that you will gradually get enlightened, become a Buddha. It's different from training the body. In the case of the training the body, as I said earlier also, it doesn't really matter, you give so much training, but there will be a limit beyond which you cannot do. Last time I gave you the example of somebody who is very good, not only good, but who is, let us say, number one in the world's long jump practice. So we say, okay, this man is the world's number one in long jump. So he'll be really like jumping a big distance, long distance. And he continued to practice that long jump. But there never will be a time in his life when we can say that he is so well practiced. These days he is jumping from one mountain to another mountain. It will never happen. Because the basis on which you are giving training is the body, which is a material, which is physical. Anything that is material, physical, by definition has a limitation. It's constricting, it's restricting. And unlike the physical object, in the case of the mind, you give training, you learn, you get habituated. It's not enough. You spend your whole life studying, reflecting, meditating, learning new things. Still, there's so much space. How many gigabytes? We cannot count, you see. With the computers, we say, oh, so many gigabytes, we get like completely surprised. But with the mind, I don't think we can count how many gigabytes. So much space. It's phenomenal. It's so interesting, you see. So that's the quality of the mind that we need to remember. Make your mind habituated with that. Okay. So therefore, here we are doing this teaching. We are primarily doing two things. One, since we want that long-lasting peace and happiness, the source for that long-lasting peace and happiness is a good mind. And the best of that mind is bodhicitta, the wish to become Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Now, even though your project, your goal is to develop that great mind to become completely enlightened, but there are obstructions, there are hindrances. And the biggest hindrance is afflictive emotions, negative emotions, nyomong, including ignorance, which is the root cause of the problem, root cause of suffering. Afflictive emotions are those which, when arises in our mind, as and when these afflictive emotions arise in our mind, it makes our mind completely disturbed, agitated, turbulent. Nyomong, the Tibetan word nyomong means something that will make you suffer, something that will make you suffer. Same nyomong barchewa. Something that will make you suffer. For example, anger. When anger arises, nobody says, I'm angry, so I'm so happy. You will suffer. At that moment, later on, even after the anger is gone, still you will be thinking about that fight. Blood pressure still is not balanced. Sleeping also not coming properly now. So many side effects. Jealousy, hatred, ill will. So any of these emotions which when arises in your mind leaves you completely disturbed. They are called afflictive emotions. It's not like compassion. Yes, when you develop compassion, which says how nice if all sentient beings meet with happiness, when you develop that compassion, you also feel a little bit disturbed, but not completely disturbed. When I show my concern about your suffering because of my compassion, oh, how nice, if she is not suffering like this, he is not suffering like this, I also feel a little bit disturbed. But that disturbance is on the surface. It's like a big ocean. On the surface there are some waves, but deep down it is calm. Because that kind of positive qualities like compassion and love, they are based on reason. They are based on proper foundation, proper logic. So deep down you will be calm. Like His Holiness, it's always the greatest example. With all the bad news that comes from Tibet and everything that is happening, or the different parts of the world, he obviously as a Bodhisattva, he is definitely very much concerned. But deep down he is not perturbed. That's the thing. So that's what we need to do. So therefore, for a practitioner, or somebody who follows Buddha's teaching and who wants to practice, the one practice out of all the practices that you can do, and which is not difficult to understand. Little bit difficult for implementation, but that also don't think it's too difficult. So the only thing is you need to start doing it. All of us need to start doing it. So that practice is fighting the negative emotions, reducing your afflictive emotions. The last time also probably I said the same thing. Fighting the negative emotions. All the countless teachings, scriptures that you see in the library or elsewhere, There may be so many philosophical ideas and things like that, bodhicitta, emptiness, patience, morality, concentration, so many things are there, but all these countless teachings, they are there to help you fight the negative emotions. To help you fight the negative emotions. So please remember this. Because otherwise sometimes people, discourage themselves by saying, yeah, I want to practice, but I don't know how to practice. I don't like this actually. Because people who say, I don't know practice, they're basically saying, I'm not very interested in practicing. That's the thing, you see. So don't discourage yourself. There's always so many things to practice and so many interesting, ways and means to practice. So for example, like if you are a very hot-tempered, angry person, if you start reducing your anger, one of the best practice you can ever think about. And with this practice, believe me, you will shine out. You will look better, more beautiful, more handsome, if that is what you want. Of course, that is what we all want. Because with the reduction of anger, there will be calmness of mind, deep down, not outside. The ordinary cosmetics that we use is only skin deep, outside, So despite heavy cosmetics, but inside, if you are disturbed, you will not look nice, So the shine, the radiance has to come from within, which is less expensive. Also, which is not so much dependent upon inflation and deflation and things like that. So all this, these practices, therefore, they're so important, not only for becoming enlightened and liberated, but in our day-to-day life. Makes such a huge difference for the development of the family, for the development of the country, the society, harmony, everything. So much related. Only if we are able to get some conviction and practice it a little bit, it will make huge difference. Imagine in a family, there's a father or mother who is very hot-tempered, angry, It disturbs the whole atmosphere all the time, But contrarily, if that anger is reduced a little bit, immediately you can sense that calmness and peace in the family. And then with anger, we die when it's not time to die. You become old when it's not time to become old. Even when you're driving, of course, with anger, you have an accident. Very likely you have an accident. So many things. It's a common sense thing. It's really a common sense thing. So what you need to do is not just read a book, but read few lines and then sit and think whether it makes sense or not. It's really important. So therefore, the one practice that you do is reduce these negative emotions. In other words, I can summarize by saying that in your life, few things that you should do. One, try your best to help others. That's moving towards bodhicitta. Try your best helping others. Try your best not to bring more suffering, more misery upon others. This we can understand. Now, next thing is only practicing it a little bit. And if you start practicing a little bit today, you get habituated with that. The last time probably I told you this great teacher who was right in the beginning, so stingy that he could not give anything to anybody. And he realized that he was very stingy. So he realized that I must practice now. So how did he start his practice? But still he was not in a position to give anything to others. So he started taking something from his right hand and giving it to his left hand. Then taking something from the left hand, giving it to the right. So mentally, while doing that, mentally he was training. So later on he was able to not only give things to others, but he became a very great teacher. It's like that. So it's a question of starting. And when should we start? After you finish your university study or after you have done all other worldly works. No. Start practicing a little bit right from tomorrow. Then you'll get habituated with it. Then you can, it's just like food. You will savor it, you will be able to know how delicious it is only by tasting. If you just keep on talking about the menu, go to a fancy restaurant and just read the menu and count the menu, memorize all the menu, and don't eat anything, then how can you taste it? So the text is not menu, for many people do that. Even those who study in the monastery, they memorize it, which is good. But don't even know the meaning, and then don't even practice a little bit of it. Don't make an attempt. I'm not saying it's easy to practice, but it's not all impossible. It's not so difficult. The small things you can do easily. Start from that. Then you can do the big things also without any difficulty. So therefore, this verse, Changchu Semcho Rinpoche, that's the precious jewel. The best of the mind, and also Rinpoche means precious gem. Now normally precious gems are diamonds and golds and things like that. They are pricey, they are very costly. But comparing to this Bodhicitta, they are nothing. Because if you have diamond rings and gold, things like golden, things made out of gold, it may be good. You may be able to fetch a lot of money by selling those things. But again, there is a risk that it will be stolen by somebody, taken away by somebody. So many problems. The more you have, the more problems will be there, unfortunately. In the case of this inner qualities like bodhicitta, no thieves can steal it. No robbers can rob it. Wherever you go, you are with those wealth. Whatever be the situation, you will be happy with that right mental attitude. Whatever be the ups and downs in the life, or whatever is happening in the rest of the world, still, because of your understanding, your knowledge, you will be happy and at peace. Because you will never allow your mind disturbed. So therefore, normally I ask people who attend my talks, I tell them, okay, there's one commitment that you need to remember. And the commitment that I normally give is that whatever may happen in my life, I will never make my mind unhappy. So this is not just a fancy idea, it's possible. Because the unhappiness of mind arises because of your wrong ways of perceiving things. How you see things is wrong. Your mental attitude is wrong. Your understanding of the law of nature is wrong. You are not living in harmony with the law of nature, that's why you get problem. But if you change your perspective, understand the law of nature, and live in harmony with the law of nature, nothing can disturb you. That's what the teachings say. I'm not saying I've reached that state, but this is what the texts say, and I have full conviction in these teachings. Because ordinarily, when we try to get that peace and happiness, we seek it from outside, from my friends, from my father, my mother, my wealth, my fancy car, my house. And it's in the pursuit of these external objects that the world is running a race today. Everybody says, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. Busy for what? For getting these material things. I have myself met a number of people who say, Geshe, I have been working so hard, doing this, doing that. I have several degrees, and I am wealthy, I have enough money, but I'm not happy. Something is missing. What is it? Can you figure out? People say things like that. Of course, you're not only missing few things, but you're missing big thing. Because you left your home empty. You have always been outside and never checked what is there inside, never cleaned your own home of the mind. So it is moldy, especially during this kind of weather, if you want to make it more vivid, So your actual home, which is your mind, you never cleaned it. So this time when I was putting this announcement for this talk, I was tempted to put the title, Inner Laundry. External laundry we do much, but inner laundry, nobody is doing that. External updating we do much, or latest iPad, latest iPhone, whatever, update. The fellow who is updating all the external facilities, the fellow himself or herself never updated. The same stupid fellow. So Buddhism is talking about updating yourself. You see? So therefore, we need to develop this conviction that unless you reduce these negative emotions, unless you change your wrong perception with external acquirements, with the external material accumulations, you will get fleeting peace, happiness, of course. Fleeting, I'm saying. Superficial peace and happiness you will get. But you're not going to get the long-lasting peace and happiness if that is what you want. If you don't want, okay, different matter. So you need to, Hindi में बोलता है ना, दिल में हाथ रखकर बोलो, you know. You need to be honest with yourself whether you are looking for the long-lasting peace and happiness or fleeting peace and happiness. If you are okay with superficial fleeting peace and happiness, जैसे हिंदी में बोलता है 4 दिन की चांदनी. If you're looking for things like that, you know, few days honeymoon period, then okay. But if you are looking for long-lasting peace and happiness, then you need to search in the right direction, the sources for the long-lasting peace and happiness. It's very important. That is the best way of taking care of yourself. So at the end of the day, the bitter truth is that at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, unless you know how to find that long-lasting peace and happiness from within yourself, you will never get it. It's guaranteed. It's guaranteed. Because what is outside of you, you don't have control. You think you have control over your husband, your wife, your brother, sister. You think you have, but you don't have. You can never have full control what is outside of you. It is also important to realize that what is outside of you, the trees, the human beings, other sentient beings, it's wrong to think that they are there to entertain you. They have their own life. They have their own natural rhythm. Like for example, look at Dharamsala, monsoon, raining. When it's raining heavily, you feel miserable and you curse 100,000 times, saying this miserable rain, you stop. It will not stop. The events will take place. The rain will continue. So these things you can't stop. The death of your friends, relatives, you know. No, anybody could stop that. Even Buddha could not stop that. Nobody can stop that. But one thing you can do, when these events take place, when these changes in external situations take place, how would you react to that changing event and situation? That is absolutely in your hand. There you have control. How you would see that? So if, for example, if you see every event, every happening in the negative light, the outcome will be you will be miserable. You will create a bleak picture of everything. There are people who think like that. Everything that they relate to, they see it negatively and they suffer. And there are others who are able to see everything in a positive light. Take the best out of even the difficult situation. They are able to take it. So they flourish, they prosper. They will be happy. So that's the situation. So therefore, removing the negative emotions is important, because it is these negative emotions which is clouding your mind, obstructing your mind in seeing the way things are, the reality. For example, when you are angry, you have no time to see the reality. You'll say all kind of things, do all kind of things. And later on, as a clear indication is, later on when the anger is gone, you feel ashamed. Oh my God, what did I do? What did I say? You know, you will not even be able to face that person coming from there. You go this direction. You see things like that. You become mad. So similarly, attachment, jealousy, hatred. You see, they will consume you from within. So therefore this Buddhist teaching in general, and the target of the Buddhist teaching is to fight these negative emotions. So cultivate this bodhi changchu semcho rinpoche machi panam chevatan, the precious bodhicitta which I have not cultivated, may I able to cultivate it. So this first line, second line, the bodhicitta, precious bodhicitta which I have not cultivated, may I be able to cultivate, that explains the first 3 chapters of Bodhicharya Avatara. That just one line tells the meaning of the first 3 chapters of the Bodhisattva way of life. And then the third line, the bodhicitta that I have cultivated, may it does not decline. That talks about the next 3 chapters of Bodhisattva way of life. And may the bodhicitta flourish further, develop more. The fourth line talks about the next 3 chapters. And then the last chapter talks about like dedication of all these practices. So in this just one verse. So this is the 4th chapter. And before that there are 3 chapters which talks about the greatness of bodhicitta and the need to remove the obstructions of wrongdoings and actual taking of bodhicitta and things like that. So having cultivated that bodhicitta, now next you need to ensure that you are able to successfully sustain that practice without being damaged by the arisal of negative emotions. So that's why the text reads, having firmly seized the awakening mind in this way. That means having firmly seized the awakening. When you cultivate the bodhicitta in front of a teacher or a stupa and things like that, you have developed it very firmly. You developed a very firm mind. So having firmly seized or developed that awakening mind, the mind to enlightenment in this way, that means in this way when you develop these 2 bodhicittas, the aspiring mind and the engaging bodhicitta. Aspiring mind of bodhicitta means to wish to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Engaging bodhicitta means not only aspiring to have it, but to actually engage and implement and practice the 6 perfections. So having cultivated these 2 minds of bodhicitta, conqueror's children must never waver. Conqueror's children basically means bodhisattvas. The bodhisattvas are children of the conqueror. Conqueror means Buddha. Bodhisattvas are born from the teaching of the Buddha, so therefore they are called children of the Buddha. So therefore, the children of the Buddha or the bodhisattvas, or even those of us who wants to practice this mind of bodhicitta, having cultivated that bodhicitta, you must now never detract, never waver, okay? Never doubt even for a moment, never think about giving up that mind. And instead, always should they exert themselves, make constant effort to never stray from their practice. So that means now in our case, to simplify it, Sanje Chodan Sol Chonam, like that words, I take refuge to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and I cultivate this mind to enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. You recite this every day. Or this mind, this verse you should recite. If you don't know how to recite many prayers, it's okay. At least recite few verses like this right in the morning when you get up. When you wake up and get up, don't just switch on the television immediately and look, and then see something that's violent or something, That's not the way you should start your day. When you get up, then you should rejoice that I'm still alive, not as a donkey or not as a monkey, but as a thinking, living, intelligent human being, a precious human life which is so difficult to get. I have it, not only I have it, again I am awake, alive, fully kicking, as we say, alive and kicking. So then you should, now I'll make my life meaningful. Appreciate that. Among all sentient beings, you are born as a human being. Among all human beings, you are born as a human being with perfect health, and so forth. There are many good things that you can be happy about. So now if you don't pay attention to these good facilities that you have as a human being, and instead of misuse it, It's a great tragedy. That's the real tragedy. It's a big mistake. It's really losing a great opportunity. It's more than losing a job opportunity. A big mistake. So therefore, be happy, rejoice, at least recite few verses which talks about cultivation of bodhicitta, and make a motivation to help others as much as possible in the course of your day, in the course of your work. Then at the end of the day, you may be watching a movie, whatever, but just before going to sleep, make sure that you again do some aspirational prayers. That's important. This is how you should start your day and close your day. And because of that, in the night also there is a likelihood of your continuously doing that practice. It's very important. So that's called getting habituated with the spiritual practice. Okay? So therefore, having firmly seized the awakening mind in this way, the bodhisattvas must never, ever, always should they exert themselves. But those of those of you who can read Tibetan, you better read the Tibetan. It's always much, much easier because you go to the original, and the distraction to never stay from their practice means because you have cultivated not only the aspirational bodhicitta but also the engaging bodhicitta. When you have cultivated this engaging bodhicitta, then you need to practice the 6 perfections, the four ways of gathering the disciples and so forth. So lapalim, in the words, whatever be your precept, do not transgress them, but rather make effort in practicing that. This is important because this is a very important project. He is saying this is a very important project. And this is supported by this next verse where he says, in the case of reckless actions or of deeds not well considered, although promise may have been made, it is fit to reconsider whether I should do them or not. Because in our daily life also, he is saying, in our daily life also, we take some reckless actions or deeds. We do something recklessly and not well considered. We do not think and plan properly and suddenly do something or thinking about doing something. But in such cases, if you have not thought properly about those activities, even if you made a promise, although a promise may have been made, but it's important that you reconsider whether you should do it or not, because you have not thought about it properly, you see. It may not be useful for you to do it. It may be a wastage of time. So it is important to reconsider whether I should do it or not. In those areas where you have not thought properly, even if you have made a promise, it is not important that you do it. You reconsider it. And then if it is something that you agree to do with a person, then you should say, I'm sorry, I did not think about it properly. Now I see this problem, this difficult, I cannot do it. But in the case of this cultivation of bodhicitta, you are talking about a project, you are talking about a practice which the Buddhas have taught countless eons. Bodhisattvas have thought about it countless eons, and they all found this extremely, extremely precious and important. And you yourself also thought about it, and that's why you cultivated this mind to enlightenment, this bodhicitta. So how can you give it up now easily? This is not something, the ordinary work where you did not think properly. Okay, so the next verse is saying that. But how can I ever withdraw from what has been examined by the great wisdom? That means, but how can I ever withdraw cultivation of this bodhicitta, which has been examined by the great wisdom of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and even many times by me, myself? That means as far as the usefulness and the importance of cultivation bodhicitta is concerned, in the same text by Shantideva, he says, the Buddhas have thought for countless eons what is it that is most beneficial to the suffering sentient beings. And they found bodhicitta. They thought not for one day, not few years, thought for Keva Tumar Rabgung Zeba Yithuanam Dingi Pember. Keva Tumar. The Buddhas have thought and contemplated for countless eons what is it that is useful for the suffering sentient beings. They all said bodhicitta. So this is an example of how much investigation that, thinking that this Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have done. And they all concluded this is the most precious, most important thing. And even in your case, you have appreciated the mind of bodhicitta. That's why you have taken the vow of bodhicitta. Many of us have received this bodhisattva vow in front of His Holiness Dalai Lama. But these days, when somebody disrobes as a monk and a nun, he was used to be a monk, now disrobed. But when somebody breaks the bodhisattva vow, nobody even cares. We have to be honest with ourselves. How many of us have received this bodhisattva vow from His Holiness? So it's important. See, look at these lines, This is something that found exceptionally important by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So how can you easily give that vow? Don't give up that vow. If having made such a promise, I do not put into action, that means if having made such a promise of achieving Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings, or the promise of cultivation of bodhicitta, if I do not put into action, the action part, having cultivated this bodhicitta, in terms of your action, you should try your best to help others whenever there is an occasion. If you don't do that, then you are not implementing. Having made such a promise, if I do not put into action, then by deceiving every living being, what kind of rebirth shall I take? You will take bad rebirth. Then by deceiving every living being, Sanje Chodan, Soji Chonamla, Chanju Pardo Dan, Kepsuchi, Dagi, Jinso Jivan, Didaki, Dola Panger, Sanji Drubar Show. When you recite these words, you are inviting all sentient beings as the guest of honor. You are inviting all sentient beings as your guest of honor. And you are saying that I'm inviting all of you as my guest of honor, and what I'm going to offer you is the practice of the 6 perfections, the 4 ways of gathering the disciples, and so forth. So having invited all these sentient beings as guests of honor, and having made this promise of helping them, if you don't, then you are cheating all sentient beings. So now you can figure out what will be the result, what will be your next rebirth in the realm of hell or hungry ghost. And he is giving an example. And here we are talking about inviting all sentient beings, by cultivating bodhicitta and not helping them. It's a very, very important, practice. Even ordinarily, he is saying in the next verse, if it has been taught by the Buddha has clearly said that those who do not give away the smallest thing which they once intended to give will take rebirth as hungry ghost. If I mentally thought about giving something to you, okay, I'll give this to you. Then later on I retract and I don't give it to you. The result will be a hungry ghost. Something like that. If you don't give it. And it's not just not giving it, but you make a promise, okay, I'm sure I will never give it. Then you go to hell. You see? If you simply forget to give and don't give it, the consequence will be lighter. Now in the case of the Bodhisattvas, they say that one of the most beautiful things that they can hear is a beggar, the voice of a beggar begging. If there is a Bodhisattva sitting here, then he hears the voice of a beggar begging from outside, give me something, give me food. When he hears that, that is music to his ear. That's the most melodious thing that a Bodhisattva can hear. But for us, ordinary people will be frightened. Oh, another beggar, run away. You see, that's the difference. Because the Bodhisattva realizes, amazing, he has another opportunity for me to collect merit. He has another opportunity to at least reduce the suffering of somebody, you see. So that is very much dependent upon your knowledge, your understanding. So if even not giving something ordinary which you have promised, if the result is hungry ghost, then deceiving all sentient beings, not practicing the 6 perfections which you earlier promised to practice, then you can figure out what will be the consequence. Verse number 6. Then I should deceive all beings. So, because in that case, you are deceiving all beings. After having sincerely invited them, as I said, to the unsurpassable bliss, that means you have invited all sentient beings, saying that, may I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. You have taken a vow saying that I will help you all achieve enlightenment. And then you stopped your practice. So shall I take a happy rebirth? No, sorry, you will not. Shall I take a happy rebirth? No, sir. But then there are exceptions. The next verse, number 7, is saying that there are exceptions. Only the omniscient can discern. There are exceptions which only the Buddhas can discern and understand, not ordinary people like us. Mika, Chanchu, Semtaya, there are people who had given up bodhicitta but still achieving liberation. Teda tharvan jebane lesul samji mechav. The karma is unthinkable, you know. Thamji chemba khoneche, only the Buddhas can. So only the omniscient can discern the manner of the action of those who give up the awakening mind, who give up the bodhicitta, but get liberation, but are freed. So if you ask me to explain it, I can't explain. This can be explained only by an omniscient Buddha. So in this connection, a story of Shariputra is told. Shariputra, in one of his previous lives, he was giving lot of, he was doing a lot of practice of generosity and giving. Seeing his generosity, an evil force came in the guise of a holy teacher. He came and said, give me your right hand. Then he chopped his right hand. Because his right hand is gone, he used his left hand to give the chopped right hand. Then that evil force said, I cannot accept your gift because you are disrespectful to me. You are offering something to me with your left hand, which is seen as bad hand, Especially in the Indian custom, Indian tradition. Left hand is something inferior. So when Shariputra saw this, he was completely shocked. Now, impossible for me to cultivate bodhicitta for all these sentient beings. I have just cut my right hand to give it to him, and still he is complaining. So I give a bodhicitta. He gave a bodhicitta. But it said later on he achieved liberation. So these are exceptions. How is it possible? If you ask me, even these great teachers, they say we can't answer this. Some of the subtle functions of the karmas are extremely difficult to say. General explanation, the cause and effect, we can explain, but the subtle individual functions of each and every karma. For example, in this very room, where all human beings have two same eyes, two, ears and the nose and so forth. But if we compare each of the nose, it will be slightly different. Interesting. If you compare the nose of 1 billion people, probably they may not be exactly the same. So what are the causes and karma for that, We cannot explain it. It's so subtle. Okay, time is up. If you have one or two questions, I can deal with that. Any questions? Because this gathering is really for study, So don't think that you have no right to ask any question, that I keep on saying something. If you have any questions related to what we have read or any other questions about Buddhism, yeah, please.
I guess you were talking about habituation. Habituation.
Yeah.
Then what is what type of habituation creates the liberation and enlightenment?
Habituation with wisdom, understanding emptiness. Habituation with bodhicitta. Habituation with compassion. Because if you get yourself habituated with all the skillful means, like loving kindness, compassion, it will help you suppress the negative emotions. But they will not have the capacity to uproot the negative emotions. But if you get your mind habituated with the wisdom, understanding, emptiness, then it will cut the root of ignorance. So getting habituated.
So when people say that somebody has the direct experience of emptiness, for example, does that just mean that they've become fully habituated with the concept of emptiness?
No. For example, when you achieve the path of seeing, the path of seeing is so called because it is at that time you are able to see emptiness directly. Therefore, it's called path of seeing. But still you have path of meditation, meaning that still you need to get habituated with that, you see. So it's not easy. Yeah. Any other questions? No question? Yeah. Oh, this is a very good question. Now you all understand Tibetan, yeah? No problem. Because I believe many of you are attending the library language classes. So the hard question was a very important question. She's saying that when you say that if you think about giving something and then later on not giving it, then you are born as an hungry ghost. So sometimes it looks like, these are like intimidating people, especially people whose minds are not matured, If you say things like that, it's really creating fear in their mind. But how far you can literally, accept it? So that's a very important question. So that's why we say it's important to study Buddhism thoroughly. Because I am explaining the words as it is. Now if you go deeper, then it will have some more clarification. That does not mean that you want to give something, not give, and then you're gone to hell or something, It's definitely not like that. But then it could have many interpretations. One interpretation is the very meaning of the word nyelwa. Nyelwa means something that will give you some problem, some difficulty. Not necessarily, a nyelwa where you are burnt alive or cooked alive, not like that. So nyelwa means something that will torment you, that give you some problem. Okay, so for example, if you continue to become stingy, then not only you will not be able to give things to others, you will also not be able to use it by yourself because you're mentally very stingy. So that will definitely bring a lot of problem. So it can be understood in this way also. Then also another problem is that how far you are going to hold on to these things. When we came into this world, we came with nothing. Came with nothing except this body. But when we leave this world, when we die, we will have to even leave this body behind. We can't even take this body with us. So this being the case, how you started your life and how you will end your life, why so much fuss in between? Hoarding and accumulating, not being able to give anything. It's going to give you a lot of headache. That's the meaning. And this is one of my favorite topics, when I give a talk on this in different places. I tell them, look, for example, in today's world, if you go and see the collections that you have in your room, you may have like 20 pairs of shoes, 20 pairs of jackets, 10 pairs of chuvas or whatever, Out of all these collections, how much you have used and how much you are using, you find it for yourself. You will find, you have collected so many things like the rats, bringing, twigs and straws and everything, Then finally not being able to use it, not only when you die, but even before you die, this will just become headache because there's so many things you have collected. And on a day when you want to wear something, you are not able to find it, you see. So this is hell, nirvana. You see? Even in the family situation, you see, when the family members are not in harmony, when everything is in a mess, then we do say, "Ta khangpa di nyewa do." See? So the trouble, nyelwa in different levels, will be there. But if you are more contented, you will save money. If that is what you want, you will be healthier, you will be cleaner, If you want to move somewhere, easily you can move. You see. So that's I think what the text is driving at. Okay, one last question, then I'll stop. Definitely I'll stop. Yes? If you could say it in English, then other will benefit. And you will also get an opportunity to.
Nowadays, most of the people, when we talk, they usually say that when we talk about the next life, they usually say that who sees the next life and do whatever you want to do for this life. Who cares about the next life? And when we try to explain to them, they hardly understand, especially the youngsters. So in that way, sometimes it's hard to explain to them, but we usually understand ourselves.
Yeah, you need to here you need to do few things. One, you cannot change everybody. And that's not your job also. And also not possible. You have to be pragmatic. Of course, try your best. But with the realization that I cannot change the whole world. Then also, in order to convince others, first you should have the conviction that there is future life. So how much influence you can make on other people is dependent upon how much trust and conviction you have to the existence of future life. And then sometimes when you try to explain something complicated, don't try to make it more complicated. Give simple examples. For example, he says, "Oh, who have seen the future life? I'm not interested in that." Then you should say, "Okay, then you don't care about tomorrow. Tomorrow is yet to come. You have not seen tomorrow. So don't plan for tomorrow also." Then they'll start thinking, "Oh, tomorrow," You see? It's as simple as that. Sometimes we don't, make things unnecessarily complicated, Who has seen tomorrow? Who has seen even what is going to happen tonight at 10 p.m., you see? But we plan for it. There's one way of explaining. Another way of explaining it is more serious, because the possibilities and the existence of future life has to be explained with the continuity of the mind, because the body, when you die, it is destroyed. So it has to be explained about the continuity of the mind. Now with the continuity of the mind, for example, several examples given in the Buddhist text. Like for example, if I burn one candle by another candle, this candle not burning, this candle burning, then I lit it, and this is also burning, this is also burning. What is it that goes to this candle? What is it that went there? So this is exactly like moving from this life to the another life is exactly like that. Or you think about a seal that you put, seal impression that you put a seal impression. Nothing is lost from here, but still you get the impression. I teach you to recite some prayers. Okay, say Om Mani Padme Hum. You have no idea how to say it, but then I teach you, say Om Mani Padme Hum, say Om Mani Padme Hum. Then after a few minutes you learn Om Mani Padme Hum. What is it that went there? This is one way of explaining it. The another way of explaining it is that tonight when you go to sleep, you are physically more or less dead. I'm not saying you are dead. More or less dead, because you have already withdrawn all your senses. Your eye is not seeing. People move in front of you, you have no idea. Some bad smells are coming, you have no idea. And you don't hear anything. More or less you are dead. But your mind becomes even more active. The body is sleeping almost lifeless, but the mind is shopping in New York. Have you experienced things like that? So whatever the mind is experiencing, you are experiencing the same thing, happiness and suffering. Even when you are sleeping, if you have a nightmare, somebody trying to kill you, you are sleeping but you are suffering, you see. What is it that is suffering? It's mind. What is it that is traveling? It's mind. Then also don't just think about physical, there is a thing called mind, because if I practice this scientific way of reductionism, like for example, from our body, go down to the smallest level like mosquito. It doesn't have a big brain like us. The scientists say all the thinkings are done by the brain, so we don't need a special entity called mind. But look at this one. Take this example of going down to the mosquito. It doesn't have a big brain, but still is very efficient in, stinking, sucking the blood, and flying around and producing that music with the wings, Very efficient, but that's not the smallest. Go even to smaller extent, the so-called clean bottled water that you are drinking. We don't see any virus or bacteria with our naked eyes, but believe me, if you use a microscope, there may be something there. Small, little red bacteria and things like that. So they are also very efficient moving here and there. They hardly have any physical body, but they are very efficient in moving and doing things. So from that you can take the clue that it can go still smaller. So in Buddhism we talk about the three realms. Formless realm, a realm where sentient beings do not have physical forms as we have. So it's possible. So you can explain things like that. So those people who don't believe in future life, they say, okay, what is happening is right now, I don't think about the future. Then you just tell them, okay, you do many bad things in the day, and then you should say that I want to do all these bad things in the day, but still I'll get peaceful sleep. It is impossible. You fight with somebody, violently fight with somebody in the day, it's almost likely, it's very likely that in the night also, when you're sleeping, you will fight again. So to say that I care only about when in the day and I don't care about the night, okay, you don't care, but you will suffer. So our life is like the day, what we do, and the night is the next life. When you have done something, you will suffer. You cannot escape from that consequences. So there are examples like that you can give. Then, to this die-hard people who don't believe in anything, you can also explain to them with some the modern scientific findings. There are the groups of scientists who are doing experiment with people who remember their past lives. Several cases, thousands of cases of people who remember their past life have been recorded now, with convincing tales. Like for example, there's this young lady, young girl who remembered her past life, and she remembered that she was shot by somebody from here and the bullet came from here. She remembered that past life. And not only she remembered that mentally, but physically in this life she had a big bulge here and bulge here. Even physical symptoms. So many of the birthmarks that we have today, they are studying those birthmarks in our body. Many of this has to do with something that you have experienced in the past life. There are many cases with convincing proofs. And those people who remember their past life are normally in the age group of 3, 4, 5. Around that time people are able to remember very clearly. And most of the people who remember their past lives are those who have died through accident, not through natural death. So all this are in harmony with the Buddhist teaching. Okay? So you should tell them there is tomorrow. Okay? Thank you. Good night.